In 1955, Chrysler did something nobody expected. They took parts from 3 different luxury cars, bolted them together, and created America's first true performance luxury car. The Chrysler 300, later called the C300, used a New Yorker body shell, an Imperial front end, and a Windsor rear clip. It was automotive Frankenstein, but the result was beautiful. Under the hood sat Chrysler's legendary 331 cubic inch Hemi V8 engine. This was not just any V8. It came with dual 4-barrel carburetors and a race cam, producing exactly 300 horsepower. That number was massive in 1955. Most family sedans were barely making 200 horsepower. Chrysler had essentially taken racing technology and put it in a car you could buy at a dealership. The performance numbers were shocking for the time. The C300 could hit 60 miles per hour, or about 97 kilometers per hour, in roughly 10 seconds. That might not sound impressive today, but in 1955, it was rocket ship fast for a full-size luxury car. The top speed was well over 120 miles per hour, or 193 kilometers per hour. At Daytona Beach, a C300 averaged 127.58 miles per hour during a flying mile run. For context, that was faster than many dedicated sports cars of the era. Chrysler did not just drop a big engine in a luxury body and call it done. They upgraded the suspension to handle the power and lowered the ride height for better handling. They added power steering and power brakes as standard equipment. This was a car designed to go fast and be comfortable doing it. The interior was plush, the ride was smooth, and yet it could dominate on a racetrack. The press did not know what to make of it. Here was a 4-door hardtop with refined luxury trim and Duesenberg-like power. One magazine called it unlike any other car, and noted it was a full-size sedan with the most powerful engine available. The nickname Banker's Hot Rod came from the fact that the typical buyer was wealthy and successful. You needed to be. The C300 cost $4,109 in 1955, which would be roughly $46,000 today. That was serious money for a car back then. Chrysler proved the C300 was not just for show. In its first year on the track, the C300 helped Chrysler win both NASCAR and AAA stock car championships. These were real racing victories with production cars. The C300 was not just fast in a straight line, it could handle corners and endure the punishment of professional racing. Only 1,725 of these cars were built in 1955, making them incredibly rare. Many were actually race-prepared and used hard. Today, it is estimated that only about 10% of the original production survives. The 1955 Chrysler C300 proved that American cars could be both luxurious and high performance. It set the template for every factory hot rod that followed. By 1966, the muscle car craze was in full swing, but most performance cars were smaller models like the Mustang or GTO. Ford decided to do something different. They took their full-size luxury sedan, the Galaxie 500, and created a one-year-only special model called the 7-liter. This was a muscle car hiding in a suit and tie. The 7-liter came with Ford's brand-new 428 cubic inch V8 engine, borrowed from the Thunderbird luxury coupe. This engine produced 345 horsepower in standard form, with optional higher output versions available. Ford even offered 410 horsepower and 425 horsepower versions of the 427 engine for buyers who wanted more. The 428 engine was massive, displacing exactly 7 liters, which is where the car got its name. Ford made sure everyone knew what was under the hood by adding special 7-liter badges on the fenders and deck lid. This was not a stripped-down street racer. The Galaxie 500 7-liter came loaded with high-end features as standard equipment. Power front disc brakes, power steering, bucket seats with a center console, air conditioning, and special 14-inch styled steel wheels all came on every 7-liter. The interior used leather-trimmed seats and trim pieces borrowed from Ford's upscale Thunderbird. This was a luxury car first, with muscle car performance included. Ford's advertising called it the smoothest brute on wheels and the quickest quiet car. Those slogans captured exactly what the 7-liter was about. It could sprint to 60 miles per hour, or about 97 kilometers per hour, in the mid-7-second range. That was genuinely quick for a big, full-size car. Modern road tests noted it had about the same power as a 1965 Ford Mustang Shelby GT 350, which was a dedicated performance car. The difference was the Galaxie could do it while carrying 6 people in air-conditioned comfort. On the outside, the 7-liter looked understated. There was a subtle pinstripe along the belt line and the special badges, but otherwise it looked like any other Galaxie 500. That was the point. You could pull up to a stoplight looking like a normal luxury sedan, then leave everyone behind when the light turned green. This was the ultimate sleeper muscle car. Ford only offered the 7-liter for 1 year, making it a rare bird today. In 1966, Ford built 8,705 two-door hardtops and 2,368 convertibles in the Galaxie 500 and XL series, but far fewer actually wore the 7-liter badges. The car came as both a hardtop and convertible, giving buyers the option of open-air performance. Contemporary car reviews praised the blend of smooth ride and strong acceleration. The 7-liter proved that muscle cars did not have to be harsh or uncomfortable. Phrase could have serious performance and luxury together. The Galaxie 500 7-liter was Ford's answer to buyers who wanted it all, and for 1 year, in 1966, they delivered exactly that. By 1970, muscle cars had a problem. Insurance companies had caught on to the trend and were charging young buyers massive premiums for big-engine cars. Oldsmobile came up with a clever solution. They created the Rally 350, a 1-year-only package that offered genuine performance without the insurance penalties of a big-block engine. The Rally 350 was essentially an appearance and performance kit for the mid-size Cutlass and F85 models. For just $158.98 extra, which was an incredibly low cost, buyers got something truly wild. Every single Rally 350 came in Sebring yellow. Not just yellow paint. Everything was yellow. The bumpers were coated in yellow urethane. The wheels were yellow. The trim was yellow. Oldsmobile made sure that nobody would miss seeing this car coming. But the Rally 350 was not just paint. Oldsmobile added a fiberglass hood borrowed from the high-performance 442 model, complete with functional air scoops. A rear spoiler went on the trunk. The grills were blacked out. Rally 350 side stripes ran along the body. Inside, buyers got a sport steering wheel. The exterior also featured color-matched 14-inch Super Stock 2 wheels, all in that screaming yellow. Underneath the eye-searing paint job, Oldsmobile included real performance upgrades. The Rally 350 got dual exhaust pipes from the 442, a quick 3.2 3-to-1 rear axle, and heavy-duty rally-tuned springs and shock absorbers. The suspension was specifically tuned for performance driving. Every Rally 350 came with a high-compression 350 cubic-inch Oldsmobile Rocket V8 with a 4-barrel carburetor. In stock form, this engine produced 310 horsepower and 390 pound-feet of torque. That was measured in 529 newton-meters of torque. A 3-speed manual transmission came standard, with a 4-speed manual or automatic available as options. The performance was solid. The Rally 350 could hit 60 miles per hour, or 97 kilometers per hour, in the high 7-second range. Reports claimed around 7.7 seconds. That was not super fast by 1970 muscle car standards, but it was quick enough to embarrass many muscle cars from the late 1960s. More importantly, because it had a smaller engine, insurance companies charged much less than they would for a big block car. Oldsmobile only built 3,547 Rally 350s total in 1970. Of those, only 160 were the smaller F85 coupes. The rest were Cutlass and Cutlass S hardtops. The low production numbers make the Rally 350 genuinely rare today. The Rally 350 was Oldsmobile's answer to younger buyers who wanted style and speed without destroying their bank accounts with insurance costs. By covering every visible surface in bright yellow, Oldsmobile made sure the car stood out. Enthusiasts today call it the original sleeper muscle car, though that nickname is a bit ironic. You definitely could not miss the bright yellow paint. But underneath that flashy exterior was a genuine performance machine with a clever approach to beating insurance rates. Modern collectors note that Rally 350s often sell for less money than many other 1970 muscle cars, despite their rarity and unique character. The Rambler Rebel might be the most surprising car on this list. In 1957, American Motors Corporation, or AMC, was known for building small, economical, sensible cars. Rambler was the brand your practical neighbor drove to save money on gas. Nobody expected AMC to build a muscle car, but that is exactly what they did. AMC took their mid-size Rambler sedan and installed a big 327 cubic-inch V8 of their own design. This engine produced 255 horsepower and 345 pound-feet of torque, measured as about 468 Newton-meters. That was more power than almost any other intermediate-size car at the time. AMC had created their own V8 by boring out a smaller 250 cubic-inch design. They called it the V8-250 engine, and it developed peak power at 4,700 RPM. The Rambler Rebel was only offered as a four-door hardtop sedan, meaning it had no center pillar between the doors. Every single one was painted silver gray with a gold anodized side stripe. There were no options for color or body style. AMC built the Rebel one way and one way only. The performance numbers were remarkable for 1957. The Rebel could hit 60 miles per hour, or 97 kilometers per hour, in about 7.5 seconds. The quarter mile came in the high 17-second range. AMC engineers averaged 7.3 seconds in their testing. These times were comparable to the fastest cars of 1957. Only special fuel-injected models could beat it. The press called it America's fastest sedan, and noted it offered quality and performance of many more costly cars. AMC had actually planned an even more powerful version. Engineers developed a fuel-injected variant that made 288 horsepower, but it was never released to the public. The standard 255 horsepower version was plenty fast. The 1957 Rambler Rebel is widely credited as the first factory-produced intermediate-size muscle car. This is an important distinction. The 1955 Chrysler C300 was a full-size luxury car. The Rambler Rebel put a large V8 into a smaller, lighter body. This formula of big engine in a mid-size car would become the blueprint for the entire muscle car era of the 1960s. AMC only built 1,500 Rebels in 1957, and the model was only available for that 1 year. The Rebel surprised everyone because it went completely against AMC's image. Here was a company known for economy and frugality, suddenly building a performance car that could embarrass Chevrolets and Fords. The Rebel never became famous like the Mustang or GTO. It came along too early, before muscle cars became a cultural phenomenon. But the Rebel deserves credit for starting the trend. It proved that a mid-size car with a big engine could be fast, practical, and exciting. In a way, it was the ultimate sleeper. On the outside, it looked like just another four-door sedan. But under the hood lurked a hot V8 that could outrun almost anything on the road. The 1957 Rambler Rebel showed that even the most unlikely manufacturer could build something special.